You are handling the machine. You don't let the machine handle you. If I mess up, I'm gonna go to the wall or into the dirt. I don't want that happening. You have to beat the cart rather than the cart beating you up.
Do you have the fear always in your mind, even if you become a professional race driver?
If you're gonna remain scared of the sport, you never want to drive again. You don't really get that dopamine from any other sport.
Andre Khoury is here to share what it takes to master one's mind and the racetrack. He is revealing how karting builds patience, mental toughness, focus, and life lessons that go beyond racing. What kind of anxiety or mindset that you have when you are in a competitive mode while driving?
You gotta be in that situation to learn how to handle the situation.
It teaches you about mental toughness.
Stamina, fitness, endurance is the most important thing.
How do you grow in terms of the career starting from karting to Formula One?
You compete for the British Championship, European Championship, Asian Championship, which what we have over here, the 24 hours. You just need to build a CV onto that. It's a king's man sport. Racing is a king's sport.
What is one piece of advice that you'll give to anyone who is interested in karting?
Take it step by step. It's better to...
Thank you everyone for your great support and comments on each of the episodes. We've been working really hard to bring you great guests and content. And it's only going to get better from here onwards. Your support means a lot to us. Do hit that subscribe button. Let's make it happen and make it count. Andre,
Hello.
thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me today.
So before we get into the discussion,
Yeah.
I'll let you know that there are two reasons that I am having this conversation
Love
with
to
you
hear
today.
them.
Number one,
Right.
my son Abdulahad. He's having karting as a passion at the moment,
Yes.
and he's driving these days, and he's driving me nuts as well.
Yeah.
At home, he talks about karting a lot, and I just want to make sure that through you, I have a better understanding of
Of
karting,
course.
and I want to see if he's on the right track.
Surely he is.
I hope I'm not wasting money on him. Number two, I really want to get inside the head of a driver,
Of course.
especially when a driver is driving a kart or a car
Yeah.
at the highest possible speed
Oof.
on a track.
That's-
What goes inside the mind of a driver?
Oof.
I really want to understand that.
There's definitely a lot.
So we'll go through this, but before that, I want to hear your story.
Of course.
Why you got into karting and why did you set up AK Karting?
So why I got into karting is my brother and I, we both ventured into this new sport. So we've been through so many different sports in life, just like how any kid would do. Go from football to basketball, swimming, and then they find their favorite sports, which they keep on doing till their adulthood, you could say. On our end is because our father kind of inspired us extremely onto this point. Like to a point where when we were maybe about 4 or 3 months old, the both of us, he actually put us in a rally car with the headphones and just, be in that shaking machine. So my dad's a 13 times rally champion in the Middle East. He's been doing this since the 70s, if not, by the 70s, you could say, starting. And then we just kind of got that motivation, that adrenaline rush. And then we realized we're adrenaline junkies, my brother and I, where we love these type of sports, where there's like, to surpass the fear. That's where it becomes a favorite, It's not like any other sport. Surely, every other sport, they have a fear depending on the person. Maybe he's scared to kick a ball. Maybe he's scared to jump to save the ball. Or maybe he's scared to shoot from distance on basketball. But like racing, you have to like bury down the fear factor because you're in control of the machine. You are handling the machine. You don't let the machine handle you. And that's where we come into place with AK. My brother who's the main mastermind behind this idea, he developed the concept of it, and I'm helping as much as possible. He wants to make it more reachable for everyone because the sport died out extremely from the rallying side, where you used to see 40 to 50, 60 cars sometimes in the Rally of Dubai, to having, I don't know, a really big grid on every category in karting. But then that shrunk completely. So we kind of just want to try, our mission statement is to revive it, make the sport more affordable, and still be part of the community that we're very close friends with everyone from different teams, regardless, there is team politics during the race, but whenever it comes off the race, it's more or less like, hey, how's it going, buddy? You know, it's friendly. It's friendly.
At what age did you actually start driving or racing?
So I started driving at roughly around, you could say, 5 or 6 years old, and it was in Jebel Ali track near the shooting range over there.
Really?
And my brother was doing it competitively. Obviously, him being older, he was doing it competitively. He was very good. He beat the likes of Mark Webber when he came to visit that track back then. And if I'm not mistaken, if it's either Mark Webber or Kimi Räikkönen, where they gave him a watch signed. He was an up and coming talent. You know, my brother had that it factor to be a strong driver. But where did it stop? Surprisingly, and why did it stop? It's because my dad got scared. So
Wow.
dad, after us seeing dad rolling on the stage, obviously being fine because of roll cages, you know, safety improved tremendously in the world of racing.
So we're talking about the age of 6
Yeah,
or 7.
yeah,
And you're how old at the moment? 28?
28.
28.
yeah,
You're still driving?
yes,
And I believe you've done some competitive racing as well.
yeah. Yeah,
Have you won any championships?
So we've won a lot of endurance championships in different categories. From pro, we finished third. I was part of a strong team with my brother onto that, and then we competed for the nations team, trying to bring a Lebanese team into the podium or into the grid at least. And we did a successful job on being vice champions as well. And then in corporate, when I used to work in a corporate company, we were 3 times champion over there. But the playing field kind of shrunk, but then it grew at the main event, which was a 24 hours, where we showed our 100% capability. So the sweetest, you could say, championship that we won was the MENA championship. Lebanon has never won a MENA championship before, and if they were super close to it by maybe missing out by 1 point in previous times. But we had excellent drivers in the team. We had an incredible roster, with everyone contributing to their utmost capability from any sort of different category of racing, let it be the gear shifting DD2s to single geared engines to a semi 2-stroke and 4-stroke category, where it's a fast engine but heavy chassis. You know, so we all played our parts, and as well endurance racing. There was a 2-hour endurance racing where in Team Lebanon there were 2 brothers, Chris and Matt, who brought the gold home for us. And we tried our utmost best to keep the streak running up as much as possible. But we turned out to be victorious for the first time.
That is fabulous stuff.
Yeah.
Now, just for the sake of our audience, I mean, karting I thought was an individual sport.
Right.
You're telling me that it's a team sport as well. How do you distinguish the two?
Oof. So you need to have the character for racing, you know. To be fair, racing is not maybe set for everyone, but it could be for everyone if they accept it to be. So it depends on your demeanor, on how you look at the sport, how you view the sport, and how you feel about the sport. I personally, for one, love the sport because it's such a flowy type of approach, you know. But then having a team actually helps you boost the confidence, helps you boost the learning, make it quicker. And you get to relate with other drivers. So like you could tell, for example, if you and I are on the track and you're faster, I could use you as a reference. And that's where teammates, they help each other. So it's a bond. It's a team like any other team there is in any sport, from football, rugby, basketball. It's a family unit, you could say.
But when you're racing, do you race as a team or as an individual?
So you'll race individually.
Yes,
but
that's
on the
right,
background, as like branding wise and everything, and as like, oh, what team do you come from? It's
Understood.
AK,
So
yeah,
AK Karting is a team as well.
correct.
Now, you've talked about your mission. If I understand correctly, you've mentioned that you want to make the sport affordable.
Yes.
Is it really costly? I'm feeling the pinch at the moment, by the way, because of Abdulahad.
Oh, that's you're still on the good side for sure. No, but karting racing in general is costly. You know, a lot of people who start off at karting at such a young age, like let's say my brother, it really depends on firstly getting sponsors, firstly having deep pockets to be able to sustain, you know, providing for every single season. There is sometimes you could range up to having a season costing you 100,000 dirhams to maybe a season costing you in a pro league such as Formula could cost you 2.5 million. Not to be exact, but that's the rough figures over there, you know. It's if you bring money to the team, you're happy. While us on our end, if you bring your experience to the team for us to mold and increase, we're happy. We don't care about the money perspective. We care about being affordable, budget friendly. Yet again, it's not a profit project. It's a passion project that we own.
Just for the sake of clarity, you have a team and you have a company,
Yes.
right? That company helps people get trained
Yes.
in karting.
Yes.
I mean, Abdulahad, for one, he's one of your students.
For sure.
And that's where we came to know each other.
Exactly.
Great. Now, one thing that I liked about our first interaction was that I could relate karting to life. I'll come back to that. Just in the middle, I want to really understand, and for the sake of our audience, how do you grow in terms of the career starting from karting to Formula One?
Of course, that's a very long line of jumping up. So, from a karting perspective, obviously, if you're to compete in your national championship, that won't be enough. You'll need to go to Europe. You'll need to start winning championships abroad, different categories, tougher categories, and from there, obviously, winning these world titles and everything from either on a four-stroke basis, where you could go from a four-stroke racing to two-stroke racing, and then if you apply the same achievements like world titles and everything, people will start recognizing you. A lot of the racers, we just had a few weeks ago in Dubai Autodrome, Kartdrome, sorry, the Champions of the Future, where there are a few drivers over there who are Mercedes drivers or junior program development drivers. It's the titles, the achievements that you've made. You know, a lot of them. If you go to the big stage and you win it, that's where you have eyes all on you. That's where some other teams they want you. You become a factory driver, and then from there you could scale up based on what the team has to provide. But from karting to F1, the thing that will never change, deep pockets. You need to have deep pockets because you are spending no matter what. Back in the day, it used to be father and son coming to the track, being each other's mechanic, and the son driving, and that's it. But today, it became more of a profitable side of things. But that's where we stand down and we don't say yes to that.
Understood. And if you can just take us through the journey from karting to what level do you move into from karting?
Yeah, you could go from karting to the Renault Clio Cup, like these small cars, and then you could improve off that. Maybe you will get scouted into GT4 category. In the European sector, you compete for the British Championship, European Championship, Asian Championship, which what we have over here, the 24 hours. You know, you just need to build a CV onto that, and the more you win on all of these categories, the more you'll be wanted. So we have a local gentleman over here, Keanu Azari, for example, hell of a driver. Him, his brothers, his father as well. His father is one of the top tier drivers, you could say. He currently drives now F4 with his younger brother, if I'm not mistaken, younger or older, in Spain and Europe. He drives the LMP2 cars or LMP3, I'm not quite sure on the category, but he's scaled up a lot. And he was just the ordinary kid that was coming to the tracks every single day. But yet again, it's all about investments. If you can invest into the team, they will accept you.
Now, I always understood that from karting, you'd probably move to F4, F3, and then how does the journey look like in terms of the F4, 3, 2, 1?
So for that, from karting perspective, you kind of jump into the cars sector right after karting, maybe. Yet again, it depends how lucky your path line is. If it's F4, then you could go straight away F4, depending on the team yet again and what they provide. But you know, it's a journey. It's a journey. It's a journey that I haven't experienced for F4, F3, F2, F1, obviously. But it's a journey. I'm late to that. I'm extremely late to that. Like you would need to start planning for F4 when you're probably like 13, 15.
It's a very young age.
Very young age.
Very young age.
Yeah.
And do you have facilities here to move upwards in terms of from karting to Formula racing in Dubai?
So yeah, there are certain teams that have the partnership with F4 Asia, for example, where you could go over there, you could purchase the seat, or if not, be part of the team. Not to say that that's the exact terms. I'm not sure exactly what are the terms, but we know that to go into these type of levels of racing, you have to spend. There are teams over here. There's been a lot of drivers going off to India, actually. We have a local driver of ours over here, Kyle Kumar, for example, who's going off to India a lot and racing over there. With a gentleman named Oliver Webb. Oliver Webb's the English gent who drives for Peugeot in the Le Mans series, for example, and he drives for different companies or factories. And they're actually racing right now in India more often than here, to be fair.
Okay, let's talk about what goes inside the mind of a driver.
Okay.
I'll talk about from my own
Love to
experience.
hear
Of
it.
course, I've been on the track
Yeah.
twice. One in Kart,
Yeah.
and the other time was in a Porsche.
Mm.
So when I bought my Porsche 911, I was invited to an event where I could drive 911
Yeah.
on the track.
Yeah.
Now, what I could see and feel when I was behind the wheel, I could see that there were people actually who were going past me, and I could accelerate, but I didn't dare accelerating on the track. I hit
Right.
the speed of 220, but then I couldn't exceed that, although I could have potentially because I had the control of the
Of
car.
course.
The one thing that I felt was distinguishing me, probably with others, was the fear.
Of course.
Now, I can understand that this is the major factor that comes into play when someone hits the motorsports, especially car racing.
Yeah.
How do you explain that in terms of your students, and how do you train students overcome
Yeah.
the element of fear?
So overcoming the element of fear, especially when it comes to driving 220, as you would say. I mean, like everyone would be scared of that, especially those who are not experienced into racing or handling a car at that speed. If it reaches to any higher point, like let's say 280, I would personally be scared, but I have the control. I know the know-how of how to control it. So it's all about seat time, all about experience. It's just like applying to any job there is. You cannot go being ahead of the company without any sort of experience. You need the experience to do so. So you need the experience to drive up and handle and be faster than those on the track with you than how it is now. So for example, on the training side, it's actually a very touching story for me, or an emotional. I'm emotionally attached to it, and I'm invested into it because seeing the boys such as Abdulahad succeed and pick up from where he started, it's a journey that you cannot just go, there you go, I'm Max Verstappen all of a sudden. No, you have to go through the toughs, you have to go through the down days of the racings. You gotta have bad results, you gotta have great results, but is the great results always gonna be consistent? So it's just overcoming the satisfaction out of it as a driver to overcome the fear factor. It's such a thrill, you could say. And Abdullah has, like, for example, give him as a reference onto this. He excelled where he was driving as a time, as an example, of 1:19, 1 minute 19 seconds, to today being 1:13. And then him racing with me on track, as we always do, like a mock during the end of a training day, and him actually beating me at some point. Not to say I'm Max Verstappen
Beating the
but
coach, you mean?
yeah, like a student is
Wow.
being the coach. It happened. The saying is true. But just seeing how they excel, it's very rewarding, self-rewarding. I don't want anything else other than the fact that they succeed
Yeah.
and they understand the sport that they're getting into. So
Fantastic.
that's what we teach them. We teach them bits.
Just want to explore the element of fear
Yeah.
a little more. Do you have the fear as a factor always in your mind, even if you become a professional race driver?
Of course.
How do you distinguish the element of fear, and how do you live with it?
Oof. So like, there's many points or many degrees of the fear. For example, me, since I'm very emotionally invested into my drivers, especially them progressing at least on the grid, I always fear the second they start the race. Like, I fear for the safety of it, obviously, because racing is a motorsport and things do happen. I, for one, experienced that. Everyone experienced that, and you're gonna experience that. You're not gonna shy away from it. But it just depends on how strong you can beat it down after you experience it. Let's take this as a driver on my worst crash that I had in karting, to give you an example onto this. It happened to be that there was a novice on the track, and it happens. You will always race with novice and pros in a mix. But it depends on how mindful that novice could be that, hey, there's a faster driver coming up. So sadly, I got clipped from the back where it spun my cart, and I ended up on the main straight where I hit the barrier and I flew off the cart. Wow. So I got scared. Why? Because second I look to my left, I see carts driving past, And there's even a story from my brother where a cart drove literally right under him when he was catapulted up. It happens. In every motorsport, it happens. But it just depends on how you could fight it down. Because if you're gonna remain scared of the sport, you'd never want to drive again. You'd be scared to drive a normal car. You'll be scared to drive distance. You'll be scared to get back into a kart or into a racing car. You just need to fight down that fear. So
if I understand it correctly, it's the mental adjustment.
it is.
And how you interact with your own fear and how you try and overcome it
Yeah.
in certain situations. It's situation-based fear,
It's a
I
mental
guess.
mind game. And anything, it will help you.
Now, talking about the accidents, I remember, I think maybe 4 or 5 months back, you had one accident.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that was the one which you've just referred to.
Oh, no.
But I think you broke your hand.
Yeah, it was quite a bad one. It was during the Middle East Championship when you and Ahad came down to the track. It was a bad one. It was a really bad one. It took me a while to get back into that kart, but just having that motivation, that adrenaline, just to get back to racing. Like I missed it. I stopped it for about 3 to 4 months, and I was itching for the day I could get back into it. Coaching wasn't really just satisfying me, but coaching and driving does.
But doesn't an accident leave you with a trauma that you don't want to do it again? I mean, for a normal person, it will be very hard, to get back to,
of course,
track, with the trauma of an accident, especially if you've had an injury, and of course your parents or people around you might discourage you.
Of course.
How do you handle that situation?
That's the unique point of a racing driver or any. Yeah, just a unique point of a racing driver, to be honest with you. We are weird. We are weird. We are weird. We go back to what hurt us the most, but it's something that you can't live with because you don't really get that dopamine from any other sport, you could say. Like, yes, it's cool that you could play football and it's amazing that you could shoot from maybe a far distance or shoot a free kick from halfway court and score it, actually. But what's even cooler is you driving fast. It's such a satisfying feeling, It's a good flow to it.
Yeah.
And that's where the satisfaction, you will not get it anywhere else other than the track.
I want to come back to the safety element, but a little bit later. But before that, I want to continue with the element of what goes inside the mind of a driver. Now, we talked about the fear factor. Let's talk about focus. When you're going at the highest possible speed, you're turning, you have someone overtaking you, what kind of anxiety or, mindset that you have when you are in a competitive mode while driving?
So it all plays out with the experience, when I'll give you myself as a reference. When I first started kart racing, as what they call SWS, sprint racing, it was the worst show I've ever part of. I crashed into people. I didn't know how to, what lines to overtake on. I didn't know what ways to give space to the faster drivers during qualifying or race one. And then after that, being lapped for the first time by who was number one or P1 on that race. It's just experience. I don't know. Like, I don't think there's any words to explain it on how you could improve, let's say, overtaking, defending, putting yourself in a certain situation, or the anxiety. You just kind of swallow it down, I would say. That's for me. Maybe other drivers might have different ways of doing it. Some of them, they like listening to music and all that. But the fact that, hey, if I mess up, I'm going to go to the wall or into the dirt. I don't want that happening. I want to stay on track. I want to enjoy the race. So that's kind of my way of handling it.
What is the most difficult thing that you feel that has come across in your experience that is difficult to teach your students?
It's to apply. You could teach them all the ways. It's just like school. They could teach you on paper how everything is so simplified, like 1 + 1, square root of pi, or whatever it may be, right? But it's the fact that, hey, you already know the answers. Can you apply it on the exam? And can you pass the exam or get it with flying colors? So it's for them to kind of jump from level 1 to level 2 by having that extra push, that they want it. So my drivers, for example, recently in the recent race, they've seen that side of me where I told them, guys, like, I need results. We cannot keep having the drivers being put down and they drop themselves down. Right now, if you go speak to any of the drivers I was racing that night with Abdulahad, they'll tell you I'm above the moon right now.
Yeah.
And if you ask them how did they feel after the previous one, not the most recent one, but the other one, they'll tell you, I feel so bad, I'm so upset. And we had one driver leave the race because he got removed from the race, disqualified, due to unruly behavior. And his morale dropped. But then, when they see that the teacher is getting frustrated that they're not giving the results that they should, because everything in practice is excellent, perfect, flawless. It's like Beethoven. It's just a flow of its own. But when they apply it to the race, when it's the real spotlight, let's say, that's where they find the difficulty at it.
One thing I've felt is that, students, in my case, in my son's case, he's started thinking about fitness more and more.
Yeah.
After he started karting, he's become more mindful of how fit he is and how healthy he is. And, he's talking about his body shape. He's in his teen years, of course, but, that apart, I think there is a specialized kind of attention that he's having at the moment because he's going for karting. He keeps talking about his weight, and he keeps talking about the weight that is required for a kart, for a competition.
Correct.
How do you experience this, and how do you teach students about the weight management and general fitness?
Yeah, so it's very important because karting is a physical sport at the end of the day. Let it be karting or any form of racing there is, because keep in mind, you are in the likes of driving here in Dubai. Summer nights in Dubai, you have a helmet, you have the suit over you, you have gloves on, there's like zero air coming into your body, it's just you being hot. Stamina, fitness, endurance is the most important thing. What Ahad is doing extremely right as well is focusing on the weight, because he's trying to balance the weight in regards to how much weight he has to apply to the kart. Because there's regulations where everyone has to be a certain amount of weight, let's say 85 kilos. Whoever is above 85 kilos, that's on you. You could still race, but you're not going to be the fastest. So the heavier you are, the slower you're going to be on track. But the lighter you are, and if you have no weights on the kart, you will be fast. So it plays a huge factor. And you have to be mindful of it, You have to be mindful of it, let's say in endurance racing, when you're doing a 24-hour karting race, as what I was doing with my brother a lot, or 12 hours, you have to be fit. You have to have the stamina, because you're going to be driving for an hour and 15 minutes nonstop to an hour, depending on what's like the maximum stint time and the rules and everything. But you cannot just look at your teammate and say, hey, I'm tired after a few laps. You have to be fit. You have to beat the kart rather than the kart beating you up, you could say.
Talking about safety.
Yeah.
I have only one advice for my son.
Of course.
I always tell him to make sure that he drives slow. So it's a family joke these days, by the way.
Well, I hate to break it to you. I mean, I thought it would go faster.
How do you ensure safety?
Yeah, so it's all about experiences. Yet again, everything in karting relates back to experiences. And experiences in a sense where I will be with them on track. And I will not let them be in harm's way for sure, but I will show them that, hey, if you do this, you will have a safety hazard. You will become a safety hazard, not just to yourself, but yet again, you got to keep in mind, it's not only I'm thinking about me and that's it. What if you spin out and there's a person that's just entering the turn, but you're just flying into him because you're spinning and you lose control? You will not just hurt yourself, you'll hurt the other person. So you always have to be mindful of the other drivers around. That's the most important thing. But safety, it's understanding racecraft, race ethics, understanding your machine. Don't push it to a maximum. Let's take the Porsche, for example, that you have. If you go on track and, on every turn you have the 100-meter board, 150, and then you have the 50, right? So let's say if you're gonna risk it for the biscuit and brake at the 50, while you should ideally brake at the 150, you're putting yourselves in harm's way, and you're putting the Porsche in a harm's way as well. Insurance won't cover it for sure. Yeah. But it's just knowing where's the sweet spot, like where to start braking, where to start accelerating, where to start turning. And this comes with experience. So usually the boys, they usually drive on their own. I would rather let them drive on their own, go to the outdoor track, drive with the others, see what others could do who's inexperienced.
Yeah.
Avoid them. Try avoid them as much as possible. The more that they learn and they adapt that, second they put on the helmet, they can avoid any slow traffic, they can avoid any spin outs, as they experience in the race themselves as well. And they've seen others it's experience. You gotta be in that situation to learn how to handle the situation onwards.
Yeah.
I'd say.
What type of safety gear do you normally use?
So for karting, there is obviously the racing suit, fireproof, the gloves, the shoes, the helmet, the balaclava, what you put under the helmet. In the world finals, for example, on the 4 strokes, you'll have to wear a neck guard in case for any sort of whiplashes. In order to protect your neck from snapping all the way back or going all the way back like that. Those are the main foundations of karting. Karting is it's an open
space. I understand there's no safety seat belt. You can actually fly off the cart.
Oh yeah, been there.
Isn't that a huge risk to your life?
Look, no, I wouldn't be saying it's a huge risk to your life. Things could happen in any sport, whether you're playing chess, whether you're playing football. Things could happen, but. It's the safety, the gears that they're producing nowadays is going above limits. Back in the day, they used to have the open helmet, or they would just have goggles, and the leather helmet. And today we're having helmets that's covering the full shape of your face along under with your jaw. Suits that helps from your skin grinding on the ground, like it will protect you because it's fireproof and the quality is getting better. Obviously, if a person is to cheap out on the safety gear, you get buckets. If you invest into safety, you're gonna be good. I've been there. I've been good, but you cannot cheap out on safety.
Yeah,
you can't skip. You can't take a shortcut on that.
Recently, of course, Abdulahad has told me that he's moving up.
Yes.
In the category, and there's a kart called Miami.
Miami.
I would love to be in Miami. I'm so sorry about that. When I heard Miami, I was thinking this guy is traveling to a place, and I asked him, "Do you have a visa for Miami?" No, he said it's a kart, and then he told me you need to really understand karting now.
Yeah.
These karts, by the way, he told me that are not insured, and he's asking for my credit card details to cover the cost if there's any damage.
Of course.
So there's no insurance for these karts. Of course, they're very expensive. I believe. It's a sport that is not for a common person. Is that true?
It's a king's man sport, you could say. Racing is a king's sport, that's for sure. It's just like not to say this about all football players or all rugby players. Like the saying goes, rugby is a sport played by hooligans, but they act like gentlemen. But then you have a gentleman sport like football, but played by hooligans. There's a saying to it, and then they say that racing is a king's sport because it's expensive.
Now, in terms of the mindset of a driver, again, I really think that karting is something that can be relatable to life in general.
Indeed.
Because it teaches you about, mental toughness. Yeah. It teaches you how you behave in a certain situation where you are actually at the top speed.
Correct.
On a track. And, what goes through your mind is very, very important.
Of course.
If you can just elaborate on the relationship between karting and life in general, please. Of course.
So, to give some of my drivers as an example, who's in driver development with me, not to say names, but some of them, they have a tendency on saying, I want to become Formula 1 driver. You can't just wake up and snap out of it and say, hey, I'm Max Verstappen, or hey, I'm Lewis Hamilton. You got to go through a lot of things, but in order for you to be in this sport, you need to return something to your parents. Especially at the age of Abdulahad and other drivers that I have, you have to give something back to your parents, where you actually got to focus on a goal. So it kind of disciplines you in a sense of way that you cannot push the cart over its limit, because if you do so, you're spinning out, you're going in the dirt, or you're going to hit the barriers. You have to understand that in everything in life, there is a sweet spot to it. And if you exceed that limit, it's not going to be enjoyable anymore. Or it's going to come back at you in time. So it's all about balancing things, I would say.
I guess that is something you'd learn from any sport. But what is so unique about karting? That's what I'm trying to get to.
That's where the balance comes into play, or the gradual steps. It's like you cannot be the fastest on the track. It's a process. It's level 1, level 2, level 3. I'm still learning. Day by day, I'm still learning on how to become faster on track. I'm not the fastest, for sure. I'm not the greatest there is, for sure. But I know that there's always improvements. And every time it changes. Depends on type of tires, type of anything that you're on. you have to maximize it.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen certain changes in Abdulahad, of course,
Yeah.
ever since he started karting. I've seen the element of discipline.
Yes.
There's a certain structured approach towards things. He used to be in a hurry for everything and anything that
Correct.
would come across his
Correct.
way. He's more organized, calm.
Yeah.
He understands the difference between, staying focused.
Yeah. I don't know if you
and,
recall when we were at the track together and
Yeah.
Abdulahad got so angry.
I remember the
And
day,
he was
yeah.
hitting the steering wheel and he was throwing a tantrum. Like
Yeah.
if you actually see him now, he is such a calm and collected driver.
Yeah.
Like he's not short-tempered. Everyone's gonna be short-tempered in racing, especially. But you gotta know on how you're gonna do well in the next race. Because usually it's like qualifying race 1, race 2. If you get a bad qualifying result, it's obviously gonna bring a person down. It's just you need to learn how to motivate yourself and push it through. And that's what Ahad has done incredibly well.
Let me ask you this question about the esports. There are a lot of kids who have, PlayStations at home and they have a complete setup at home.
Yeah.
They keep playing,
Yeah.
racing at home. But do you see students doing that a lot of times, or do you see students just sticking to their bedrooms, just playing or racing at home? They don't show real passion for actual karting or racing?
So it's actually the cheapest way to actually be involved in the world of racing is because there's no fear factor over there. There's no harm factor. You can always hit the restart button no matter what, or you could leave game and then rejoin another one. In real life, you don't have that. If you hit a wall, you hit a wall. If you spin out, you spin out. You can't restart or flashback. But I, for one, for example, I do esport racing as well. There's a huge community as well over here in the UAE. And a lot of them are those who are racing with us in karting. So esports will teach you a lot about racing. But the one thing it will never teach you is the actual feel in real life, because in real life you have the G-force, you have the braking pressure, you have the acceleration. If you're dodging something, your whole body's gonna shake. While at home, when you're sitting in your bedroom and you're doing that, it's okay. I hit the car, I go back into the pit, it'll repair by itself, and then, it's a cool way of learning. It's a first step, I would say.
You can never experience the experience until you're out there.
100%.
I'll give you a very simple example. I met with a friend, and he's a client at the moment now. We met after a number of years at lunch, and we were talking about the future of workplaces and all that. And we talked about AI and the Zoom call and what have you. We said, there is no alternate to meeting in person or doing things in person. That will never be taken away by technology, no matter how deep technology can penetrate in your life.
I think it will. It's getting scarier by the day,
Really?
to be honest. Like, did you see the Tesla robot on how you can actually have a conversation with them? It's like a proper human-figured robot, and like it has a humor. That's the scary part. Like, you code something to have a humor. That's scary.
Well, that's fine, but I'm talking about your actual real life experience in terms of being on the track or meeting someone in person. That can never be taken away from you, right?
It can't, yeah. But racing actually a lot of times I'm seeing online, like they do it as skits, like jokes, but like it's actually becoming serious now, where a lot of times like people are, look, for example, in Yas Island or Yas Marina, the track, they're doing a Formula race where there's no driver. It's just based on AI. So now AI is coming into racing, which is scary. Then what's going to happen to the drivers? In Formula 1, you have 22 drivers selected for that super license thing. Now you're going to have a robot named Fred. Like when you start Microsoft, hello, Fred. He's going to be driving for you. And it's just based on the science that there is. And it's not successful yet. It's kind of like a laughing stock of the racing series now. But it is scary. They will improve onto it.
But I guess in 10 years' time, things will turn out to be true. Whatever, foundational framework is being done at the moment based on the AI, there will be driverless cars and, what have you. Are we talking about the end of racing?
For as a driver, as a human driver, who knows? Who knows? It's just like the camel racing, that they have this little machine that hits the camel. For example, where's the camel jockeys? they're not there anymore. Or if they are, it's a very like niche side of the sport. Now with racing, it's getting scarier. There's electric carts as well. There's cars where you could handle or control from hovering over the car with a helicopter. You could find that on YouTube as well. VR, where you're sitting down in a lobby or on the penthouse and you're just driving with the simulator. It's getting scary. It's getting scary, that's for sure.
In my view, just kill the human experience.
Exactly. And that's, I for one, I'm with, it's like a love and hate relationship with AI. I'm with and I'm against at the same time. But like, I'm with, why? Because it makes life easy, right? ChatGPT, for instance. It's just a scary time, I would say.
Just to conclude things,
Yeah.
what is one piece of advice that you'll give to anyone who is interested in karting?
It would be more or less of, take it step by step. You cannot rush the process. If you rush the process itself, it's gonna rotten. It's gonna get bad, and then you're gonna go like, I don't want this sport anymore. Or I'm scared of this sport because I had a bad experience or a crash or someone hit me and whatnot. Take it step by step. It's better to progress by 1% than not progressing at all, or even 10% max. But take it step by step. Learn, understand the mechanism, understand the approach, the things that you need to actually feel and know about racing. You can't just be anyone to rock up on the tracks and go like, hey, I want to race. Of course you could do that now, but to be competitive, you gotta understand. That's the most important thing. Be calm, be patient. Don't be lightheaded or hot-headed. Be respectful. And if you respect
That's a great message to end this conversation.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Andre,
Thank you
for
for
joining
having
me
me.
today. It's been a wonderful experience learning karting and the mindset of a driver from you today. Thank you so much.
We look
Thank
forward
you.
to seeing you on a go-kart as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.